So let's talk about what's going on with Edward Snowden currently. The campaign for a pardon was not successful. He is in Russia through 2020, and then has to find alternate residency. So maybe.
Well, I mean, he has the equivalent of a green card there, which is, instead of being permanent, it's renewable every 3 years. So this is the second time that he's been extended, 3 years to live there. It's not asylum, actually. He's able to travel and work lawfully there. So, he made clear from the beginning that his first choice would be able to come home, but he would not come home in a way that would serve as a deterrent to future whistleblowers. He wasn't going to get crushed by a legal system that would give him a 30 or 50-year sentence for what he thought was an act of conscience and what turned out to be a critical piece of reform. There was no reasonable offer ever offered by the United States government of a deal that he could even consider accepting. He applied for asylum, as you know, in 24 countries or more when he was stuck in the airport in Russia. He would still very much like to be able to have option 3. Right now, option 1 is Russia. Option 2 is a maximum security cell in the United States. So if another country were able to offer him option 3, I think he would strongly consider it or take it. But, having said that, this is also a show about technology. Technology has taken some of the sting out of exile. It does that by allowing easy communication between friends and family, using technology like what we're using right now and other things. It allows Edward Snowden in 2016 to do 50 public appearances by video technology around the world, and already he's been doing many this year. So the government has been able to keep him out of the country, but it hasn't been able to keep his message or his voice out of the country. And if he ends up having to stay in Russia longer, I'll say this: when he undertook to do what he did, he expected much worse. He didn't expect that he would be able to be a vital part of the debate that he helped launch. He thought that it was overwhelmingly likely that he would be captured and imprisoned. The fact that he's able to live this rich and fulfilling life using technology is beyond his expectations, and he's definitely not asking for pity.
Got it. That's good to know. There is a piece in our discussion points that he didn't have the benefit of your advice, Ben, as he was making decisions and taking actions. And there is a piece that highlights how difficult it would have been and must have been for him to figure out what his rights were in connections with the actions that he took. A piece from the Washington Post discussing the law that may or may not have offered him any cover. It's a complicated and open to interpretation kind of question.
Well, actually, it's not so complicated in this case. What whistleblower law provides can in fact be an arcane and complicated question. In his case, though, there's no legal regime that could have offered him protection. He was not trying to report an isolated incident of fraud or misconduct or illegality that was unknown to his superiors or to Congress. He was objecting to an entire surveillance regime that had been approved by all 3 branches of government without the consultation of the American people. And so there's no place to go to say, I need to complain about a program that the president has ordered, that the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court has authorized, and that has been briefed to the Intelligence Committees of the House and Senate. The only place to go in that circumstance is to the public through the media. He did it in the most cautious and responsible way he could. He didn't publish the documents himself. He didn't give them in bulk to an entity that would publish them in bulk. He gave them to news institutions that are very cautious about what they publish.
Can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah,
sorry.
Sure.
I just wanted to. So when Chelsea's clemency was brought up, when it broke a few weeks ago, and we talked about this, I characterized my opinion on the differences and the similarities between the 2 whistleblowers, and I think that rubbed the wrong way against at least one of our listeners who wrote us. I guess I'd love to hear your take, if you could. compare and characterize the way that Chelsea Manning, leaked her documents and the way that Ed Snowden leaked his documents, and which, if either, sort of followed the ideal whistleblower track, and ways that the whistleblower protection, I guess, inevitably would have failed either or both of them?
Well, again, I think.
Before you answer that, I have a follow-up.
Sure.
To draw everything to a close, if you have any advice for folks who find themselves in this situation, who should they speak to and how should they proceed? Well,
so I think you need to, first of all, divide whistleblowers into two categories. Put most federal workers on one side and then put so-called national security employees on the other. And the protections in the latter category have always been inadequate and weak. The law doesn't extend as much protection to them. And even in cases where the law does extend protection, it's so difficult to prevent retaliation, given how easy it is for government to withdraw security clearance. Even if they don't bring a case, if they withdraw your security clearance, they've basically ended your ability to be employed in your field. Millions of people rely on that security clearance in order to be employed in the national security world. And so there are not a lot of great options for national security whistleblowers. I would urge, though, people in government to turn to the organizations, the Government Accountability Project, the Project on Government Oversight, that have expertise in the very sort of detailed, arcane procedures that are available to other federal workers. The instructions that went out to federal workers imposing gags were inaccurate in the sense that they did not include the exception for illegal conduct. Illegal government activity can always be reported through proper channels, again, and you ought to be able to do that without retaliation. But on the national security side, it doesn't always turn out that way. The ACLU represents both Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, and so I don't think I'm going to be the person who's going to assign different moral categories here.
Right, of course.
In this case, I think people have the information they need in order to reach the conclusions that they want to reach about what the proper way is to act if you encounter grave misconduct as they did.
And so, as far as resources for those kinds of people, would you, aside from just the ACLU, what government agencies should they be looking to for support?
Well, there's OSCE, which is, you could go to osce.gov, and I think federal workers would know this. Many federal workers can turn to their unions for advice about how to proceed in these kinds of situations. The expert organizations in Washington are the Government Accountability Project, GAP, and the Project on Government Oversight, POGO, which have great online resources that people can turn to for advice in these situations.
Great,
and look,
thank you.
Let me, on a closing note, say this. I think there are probably people out there who may not have been enthusiastic about Chelsea Manning or about Edward Snowden, who are going to want to take a second look at this whistleblower question and are going to realize over the next few years, when all three branches of government are under the control of one party, when traditional oversight mechanisms probably won't work so well, that we're going to be relying on whistleblowers and a free press in order to protect our institutions. So I hope people, again, who may have been hostile to a Manning or a Snowden before, will understand now, have a new appreciation for the value of what they did.